If you own a 3D printer, you probably have the same problem. Spools lying around everywhere. And I really mean everywhere. So let's fix that. After some hours in Blender, I came up with this. I went for a steampunk style and added some mechanical details. More on them later. Steel, bronze and brass looking filaments should fit this style well. So let's start the printer. Many parts for a simple box. At this point, I'm not sure what I'm doing. But here we are. So let's start assembling. I started with assembling the bottom part of the box. No screws are needed, only super glue. Please, use gloves, not like me. Even if you are trying to be careful, it will mess up your hands. I managed to mess up my fingers and I wasn't able to unlock my phone with my fingerprint for a while. The easiest part is almost done. Next up are the walls. I glued 2 clips to each of the 9 wall parts. Then I tried to somehow glue them to the base. I made some smaller visual mistakes, but I blame it on trying to get everything on camera instead of focus fully on assembling. The first wall worked fine. The second one as well. While the first 2 walls dried, I glued another 2 parts together. German efficiency. And another one. Once more. Then I glued a single wall to the first 2 attached walls. Gluing the next 2 walls made some problems, as I wasn't able to press it well against the base plate, and the angles between the pre-glued parts weren't ideal. But I kept going on, and glued the last 2 walls together. Next up is the decoration. It's great to cover imperfect seams between wall parts. You may have noticed that I'm now wearing a glove on one hand. Should have done that earlier, but for some reason I'm using the other hand without the glove more. Genius. Here I'm trying to get the last drops of glue out of the tube. The gloves didn't make it better. I kept struggling. In the end, I somehow managed to finish the bottom of the box. Here you can see some of the imperfections I mentioned earlier. Some corners don't align well, but it should still work. Now let's start with the lid. Starting really simple with adding some glue to that surface. These will later keep the lid in place and prevent it from moving too much, as well as holding the 3 main parts together and act as a guide for the 3 pistons. Once again, I use clamps to keep them in place when drying. Same procedure with the next parts. They fit together really nice. And now the same with the third pair. Then I glued these 3 parts together to get the main body of the lid. If you take a closer look, you may notice that my super glue is dripping on the table. If possible, use a more viscous glue, but also one that doesn't leave any stains on the parts. And put some cover on the table. Old newspaper, for example. Now comes the fun part, the mechanical components. I started with the center ring. This is the main mechanism that's locking and unlocking the vault. Assembling the rest feels like a puzzle itself. But don't worry, if you want to print one for yourself, I've prepared assembly instructions with pictures. I started with the static parts. It was the easiest to remember their position. The gears were a bit tricky, as they all have the same diameter in the middle. Yeah, I was struggling a bit, but I managed to assemble the first sub-mechanism. As well as the second. Now the third one is easy because there aren't many parts left. Now make sure they are working as intended and without much force before adding the glue. Looks perfect. It's important to use a small drop of glue on the little caps so the glue doesn't touch the moving parts. But the main mechanism is still missing something. Let's add the last bit. Bit tricky to assemble this part, especially when trying to film it as well. Now orient the 3 small pistons so they are between those gaps. And put on the last parts. Now a short test to see if it works. Now that the box is finished, let's talk a bit more about the 4 mechanisms required to open the vault. The first one works by pulling the lever. This will push out a rod that blocks the main piston from retracting. As you can see, nothing happens when rotating the main gear. Only if you use excessive force, but I'm not going to demonstrate that. Now that the rod is retracted, it's working as intended. The next one consists of a series of interlocking gears, each playing a crucial role in transmitting the force from one to the next. Rotating the golden gear makes the partial gear extend, so it's blocking the main piston. The third one consists of 2 gears that are making a rod extend or retract. The main part is a bit special. Here, seen from the bottom, the rotary motion of the middle makes the pistons retract and extend. If you rotate the main gear, its base is rotating with it, but slower. It works kinda like a planetary gear, but also it somehow doesn't. Not sure if it has a specific name. I doubt it because it's unpractical. and I can't think of a single use case for it apart from looking nice. I'm happy with the result, but I wanted a more metallic look for a better steampunk feeling, so I printed and assembled another one. But this time I used acrylic paint to paint each part and give it a more metallic vibe. I think it looks fantastic. And it still works as it should. I tried a different method when assembling the bottom part. I first glued all 9 wall parts together and then pushed the base plate inside. While I was skeptical at first, it worked like a charm. So let's make a quick recap of this project. Did it solve my spool problem? No. It has only room for 1 spool. I still have plenty of spools lying around. Does it keep the filament dry? No. The box is not airtight. Is it modular? No, you can't even stack it. Is it practical? No. 4 actions needed to open the lid is completely over-engineered. Does it look good? Yes. So, I call the project a success. I mean, you don't have to store filament in it. It can be anything you want. And it's a nice eye catcher as well.